The loud announcement echoed across the bright VIP terminal just as the boarding gate closed. A woman in a simple pale blue dress stood frozen, gripping the handle of her small black suitcase. She had traveled through endless tears, sleepless nights, and thousands of miles to say goodbye to the only person who had ever loved her without conditions. But before she could take one final step toward the aircraft, a powerful executive canceled her boarding pass with a single phone call, believing she was just another passenger who could be pushed aside. He never imagined that the quiet woman standing before him controlled a global empire worth over $50 billion, or that this single cruel decision would change every life inside that airport forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness always comes back, and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who believes in compassion, and subscribe to our channel, Light of Kindness. Your support helps us bring more heart-touching stories to people around the world. The woman's name was Seraphine Vale, although almost nobody in the airport recognized it. Around the business world, she was one of the wealthiest entrepreneurs alive, but she had spent years avoiding cameras, interviews, and public attention. Her mother had raised her to believe that true value was measured by character rather than wealth. That lesson stayed with Seraphine even after she built one of the largest renewable technology companies in history. She traveled without bodyguards whenever she could, wore ordinary clothes, and preferred silence over luxury. This journey had nothing to do with business. It was the hardest trip of her life because she had just buried her mother after a long battle with illness. Her eyes were swollen from crying, and her shoulders carried a weight that money could never remove. The funeral had ended only hours earlier. She had stayed behind until every flower was arranged and every candle had burned low. She whispered one final goodbye beside the grave before rushing to the airport, hoping to return home quietly. She carried no assistants, no private jet, and no entourage. She simply wanted peace. At the same terminal stood Gareth Holloway, the regional director of an elite aviation company. He had built his reputation on power, influence, and exclusive service for wealthy clients. When a billionaire politician unexpectedly requested Seraphine's seat for his own family members, Gareth saw an opportunity to impress someone he believed mattered more. Without hesitation, he instructed the staff to remove the unknown passenger from the manifest. He never bothered to verify her identity. To him, appearances were enough. When Seraphine reached the gate, she was informed that her ticket had been cancelled because of an operational adjustment. No apology followed. She quietly explained that she had a confirmed reservation and had just returned from her mother's funeral. The employees looked uncomfortable, but Gareth dismissed her words without even meeting her eyes. He believed grief made people emotional and difficult, and he had no patience for what he considered inconvenience. Instead of arguing, Seraphine simply lowered her head. She had spent her life solving billion-dollar problems, yet in that painful moment, she lacked the strength to fight over a single airplane seat. She turned away from the gate and sat alone beside a large window overlooking the runway. The afternoon sunlight stretched across the tarmac while tears silently rolled down her face. She wasn't crying because of the cancelled flight. She was crying because the world suddenly felt colder without her mother in it. An elderly janitor named Marta Ellison noticed her sitting alone. She quietly approached with a paper cup of warm tea purchased from the airport cafe using her own money. Marta didn't know who Seraphine was. She simply recognized heartbreak because she had experienced it herself years before. Without asking questions, she placed the cup beside her and gently rested a comforting hand on her shoulder before returning to work. That small act of kindness meant more than any luxury Seraphine had ever known. Meanwhile, Gareth proudly escorted the politician's family onto the aircraft, believing he had secured valuable connections for his career. Everything seemed perfect until the airline's global headquarters called only minutes later. Their legal department urgently requested confirmation regarding the cancellation of a passenger identified as Seraphine Vale. Gareth confidently replied that she had been removed due to operational priorities. The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. Then came the words that drained every color from his face. Seraphine Vale wasn't just an ordinary traveler. She was the majority shareholder of the investment consortium that had quietly financed the airport's largest expansion project. Her company had recently signed agreements worth billions with the aviation group itself. More importantly, she had personally refused VIP treatment in every previous visit, requesting complete privacy. Her influence reached far beyond business contracts. Thousands of employees across multiple countries owed their jobs to the industries she had created. Panic spread through the terminal. Executives began arriving from every department. Phones rang non-stop. Security teams searched every lounge. Gareth suddenly realized the woman he had dismissed had never once mentioned her wealth, never threatened anyone, and never demanded special treatment. She had only wanted to go home after saying goodbye to her mother forever. They eventually found Seraphine exactly where Marta had left her, quietly watching airplanes disappear into the blue afternoon sky while holding the now cold cup of tea. The airport's senior executives apologized repeatedly and immediately prepared a private jet exclusively for her journey. They promised disciplinary action, compensation, and public statements. Yet Seraphine listened without anger. Her face remained calm, though sadness still lingered in her eyes. She gently explained that the greatest disappointment wasn't missing a flight. It was discovering how easily people judged others by appearance. She reminded them that respect should never depend on someone's title, clothing, or bank account. Every traveler carried invisible battles, and no employee ever truly knew what another human being was enduring. Her words spread throughout the company faster than any corporate memo. Gareth expected lawsuits, humiliation, and the destruction of his career. Instead, Seraphine requested only one meeting before leaving. She looked at him with quiet compassion rather than hatred. She told him that leadership was never about choosing the richest customer. It was about protecting the dignity of every person equally. She admitted she could forgive his mistake, but she hoped he would never again allow ambition to silence kindness. Those words haunted Gareth more deeply than punishment ever could. Months later, he voluntarily resigned from his executive position and dedicated himself to rebuilding airport customer service programs focused on empathy and fairness. He personally trained new employees to treat every traveler with patience, especially those carrying unseen pain. At the entrance of the terminal, a small plaque was eventually installed with a simple message inspired by Seraphine's experience: every passenger has a story. Treat each one with compassion. As for Marta, the elderly janitor who had offered nothing more than a cup of tea, her life quietly changed as well. Seraphine established a charitable foundation in her name to support elderly workers and grieving families traveling for funerals. Marta never asked for recognition, but her simple act of kindness inspired thousands of others across the country. Years later, travelers passing through that airport often heard employees share the story of the woman worth $50 billion who never asked for special treatment, only basic human respect. Yet those who truly understood the story knew it was never about wealth. It was about the priceless value of compassion shown when someone appears to have nothing left. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with your loved ones, and subscribe to Light of Kindness. Every act of support helps us continue sharing stories that remind the world compassion still exists. Rose special request: before you leave, comment with the words, "Kindness costs nothing, but changes everything." Let your message inspire someone else today. Because in the end, fortunes can build skyscrapers, private jets can cross oceans, and power can open countless doors, but only kindness has the strength to heal a broken heart. And sometimes, the smallest gesture offered to a stranger becomes the greatest legacy anyone could ever leave behind.